Tracy, you just recently took a phenomenal trip. And I remember a few episodes ago, we had a conversation about you traveling on another wonderful trip and your anxiety levels. Some due
Mhm.
from the pandemic and just taking this type of trip. So now we completed our second, I want to say world trip, because this was another phenomenal one.
Mhm.
How did you find your anxiety still at the same level, or have you found some of your tricks continually to work? Like, how was it?
Um, I didn't leave it up to chance. Let's say that. I didn't decide, oh, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to see how this goes because I didn't want to be in a position of not being somewhat prepared with the tools that I use to help lower that anxiety. Having said that, where there was a couple of layovers where nothing was happening. Interestingly enough, I did almost have a complete panic attack on one of the flights because I had not done anything on the second layover for the second part of the journey. So that was very interesting. I was like, okay, this again shows me that you need to, if you know that you are predisposed to the potential of having high anxiety about something, then you're better off thinking about that, not even necessarily doing anything like meditating or anything like that, but just knowing, okay, I have this, and this in my arsenal. And kind of running through that pre-program so that when it starts to happen, it's like, okay, yeah, I know what to do. Because I didn't, it took me a while when I started to get super anxious on the long journey. I got super anxious in the middle of the flight, and I don't know why. There was
Mhm.
nothing. It was just, like, as we know, anxiety doesn't necessarily need a purpose or a trigger or whatever. It's just like, hey, I'm here. Deal with it, right?
Yep.
And that's sort of what happened. And it took me a while to access those tools, like to access, okay, yes, just start to deep breathe, start to talk out loud, um, tell my husband I'm feeling really anxious, like those things that I had thought about on the previous two legs of the trip. It was like, okay, yeah, I know exactly how I'm going to handle this if I start to, feel out of control. So that was really interesting because it took me a while to my brain just like started to spin, and I was like, okay, I don't know how to handle this. I'm really like I'm and I just kept getting more worked up, um and tighter, like my body just went tighter and tighter,
Mhm.
until it was actually the breathing that helped settle me down. And then I used all the other tools. Like I started talking to my husband, hey, I don't know why, but this is happening to me right now. And there's no rhyme or reason to it, but it just is. And that in itself is very helpful, just to be able to express it. It's almost like it's leaving my body as I'm saying it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
really interesting. So it really does, it reinforced to me that there is no question that I need to, for me, if I'm getting on a flight, and it really is the pandemic thing, like it's being in that close proximity with that many people. That's what makes it happen for me. Um, that I have to do that work. I have to be prepared before I go, and I have to run. I gotta, almost like the pilot doing his, pre-flight
Preset.
plan. I got to
Mhm.
do my own pre-flight plan before I get on the plane in order to know that I've got everything laid out for myself.
So
But
just
other than that, the trip was amazing.
so just to be clear, on your previous trip, we had talked about that, and you really had a plan in place for traveling and how you were going to approach these flights and layovers. And on this one, you're saying you kind of lightened up a bit about it and didn't really plan it the way you had in the previous trip. Is that correct?
This trip on the way out, because this is when it happened to me, was on the way out. There was 3 legs, so there was 2 stopovers, so it was 3 separate flights. I planned for the first one. I planned for the second one. I did not plan for the third, because your brain says you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're okay.
You got this, Tracy. What the hell are you planning for?
Yeah, like it's like there was no, like there was, and I would have agreed with myself, because when I went to get on the plane and we're going through the lineup and all that, like there was no problem. Like I wasn't feeling anxious. I didn't feel like I had any problems, but it was about an hour into the flight, and I was like, oh my God, like it just came over me like a wave, just like a wave.
And how long was the flight?
13 hours. So I was like, okay, I got, it's not that I had that conscious thought, oh my God. I had the thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I've got to stay on this plane for 13 hours,
Yeah.
which just increased that anxiety,
Yes.
right? Like you start, what's so interesting is that you start saying those kinds of things to yourself. I can't do this. I can't handle it. I got to get out. I got to get out. And like, you're just creating all of this chaos within yourself. And I just was like, I was like almost to the point of tears. And I just thought, okay, just relax here. Just take a deep breath. Just because I actually realized I wasn't breathing. Like I was like such shallow breathing. Like I wasn't really getting full breath. And that's really what actually allowed my brain to access, my pre-flight plan that I didn't bother with this time around, right? But it was that deep breathing that like literally it calms your central nervous system down. It just really lowered the whole thing, so that I was able to say, I know what to do here. So I just started talking to my husband and started naming all the things in front of me and talking out loud and whatever. But that's what works for me. So it's like I know that helps to get rid of that feeling. I mean, it never really, I sort of liken anxiety to like a companion. It's sort of always going to be with you. You just don't know when it's going to show up. And if you can, if you can even remember just the one thing, like the deep breathing, that in itself will absolutely help you access everything else that you need to get to. And people do not appreciate what breathing does for you. We breathe all the time, obviously, and we don't even recognize that we are, but we never take the time just in our day to just sit and do a full, few really big, deep breaths, just to oxygenate our bodies, just to help, create energy if you need energy, or to lower the temperature if you're feeling stressed about something. Like breathing is such an amazing tool to use for both of those things.
Yes. And what I liked is here, Tracy, that you have this arsenal tools in a toolbox. I think sometimes people look at anxiety or anything that they're going through as sometimes they want this one fix, quick fix, get rid of it. And it's not that you are going to get rid of your anxiety, but you're learning how to deal with it. And what happens is the anxiety ends up subsiding in time, as you continue to do this habit and this routine using these tools or arsenal, because your brain's going to go, well, damn it, it's not going to have any effect on her anymore. I'm just going to like do it. And like you did it flight 1, you did it flight 2, and your brain's like, haha, she didn't do it. I got her now. I got her now. And it started, and you're like, crap. Okay. And the second thing was, people don't understand sometimes, I think, with anxiety, even people with, suffer from it, and people that know people that suffer from it, it's our brain is like on this hamster wheel, hamster wheel, hamster wheel. And what you did was you stopped it from the breathing, and then you turned and started talking to your husband. So now your brain had no control over you any longer. That anxiety, I mean, had no control, because you interrupted that anxiety. You interrupted it. You're like, oh no, stop. You're not going any further. And I think that's very important for people to understand, that it's just like putting that gas in your car every single day, or every single week, or the month, or whatever. It is getting the food for your refrigerator. It is taking your shower every day. It's the tools, it's the habit that you have to do it, and that's the same thing when it comes to sometimes our mental health, our emotional health, and our physical health.
Well, I think we always talk about it being a fix. Like, let's just fix it. Let's just get this done.
And it's gone.
And it's done. And which I find really interesting with your profession too, Tracy, that this is what you talk about. And this is, confidence and all this stuff. And yet you didn't do something on that last flight that you normally would have done. And it just, like Michelle said, your brain said, oh, I've got you. I've got you, because you're not doing the maintenance. You're not doing the ongoing work, not the one fix.
Yeah. And that's what's so important, because we do think that, oh, I've done this, so therefore I don't need to do it anymore. And whenever anxiety makes you feel helpless to begin with. You feel like you are a victim of whatever this is, and it's not logical. It's not reasonable. When you try and talk to somebody who doesn't really experience it or doesn't know it, it's like they're looking at you like you're talking a foreign language. Like, how could this possibly bother you? But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what those circumstances are. It's that we have to know that, okay, this is a part of me. I know that this could happen to me. So I know that what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a few minutes. We're not talking hours. We're not talking, like tons of time here. If I had just gone through my pre-flight plan for that third leg, I'm pretty sure I don't think anything would have happened, but I didn't. I was like, let's get on the flight. We're good to go,
Right.
And I was, just like, oh, I hope I can sleep and all that kind of stuff. But that was it. There was no anxiety about that. Like, oh my God, I got to sleep and I can't, there's none of that. But yeah, it was really, really interesting. And we're talking a couple of minutes.
Yeah. It's amazing. And thank you for sharing with us, because I know sometimes, as somebody who suffers from anxiety also, you feel alone. Like, am I crazy? Like, you're sitting there like, you want to get, like, for me, at times it was like, I wanted to crawl out of my skin, because it was just so, my brain vicious. And I'm like, it's not is, because if I don't do, as you said, Tracy G, the maintenance, that can come up. We talked in a previous episode about me moving and removing everything from my home, not to take with me, to discard and remove, because we're moving. That has anxiety riddled all through that. And there's maintenance that you do to get through it. Pen to paper, deep breathing, conversation, moving my body, fueling my body, removing alcohol, whatever it is that you need to do.
I'm not
for the
removing
maintenance.
alcohol.
You don't have to remove, don't worry, Tracy, you don't have to. You don't have to.
No, just joking.
You don't have to. You know what I mean.
Yeah, no. And I think that's the thing though, is that that's the biggest thing I learned at my age, was that it's not a fix. It's not a one-time event.
Mhm.
And if you're anxious about something, it could be a social setting, whatever,
Mhm.
you're probably going to be anxious the next time and the next time,
Yeah.
but pull out your toolkit and use it.
Yeah.
Yes.
At least know what the toolkit is.
Yeah.
Let's start with
Right?
that,
'Cause
right?
that's like to go, okay, yeah, I know that when I'm in this situation, if this happens, I can deep breathe, I can go to a washroom and just, start talking out loud, or whatever the fix is for you.
Yeah.
That's going to help you in that moment. But you're right, Tracy. I think it's really important that we recognize, and that it's okay, that it's not necessarily you fix it and that's it, you're done. You're good to go for the rest of your life. I mean, rarely, I think with mental health, rarely do we ever get past everything. There's going to be parts of our life that those old challenges, those old beliefs are going to show up because we're in a new situation, and our brain instantly wants to go back to default, whether it serves us or not. It immediately wants to go back into default mode. So I think it's really important that we recognize that and go, okay, I know how to help myself. I know how to get myself through an anxious situation, or I know how to get myself through this new thing that I'm going to be doing, because I have this, and this, and this that I can work through. And that's what's really important.
I want to talk to the audience right now, because we're talking about fixes and tools and arsenals that we have in our toolbox. And what I have is different from what Tracy has, and what Tracy has is probably different from Tracy G. If you are unsure what works for you or what we're talking about when it comes to anxiety, please put it in the comments and we'll have a whole show on that. Like, we'll answer those questions on what this looks like. Because even though we have these tools, there are different times we use different tools for different things. And there are times where I have known this a tool works for me with my anxiety, but it didn't work at that moment. I knew that it wasn't so much that I needed to take a breath or I needed to do pen to paper. It was I needed to move my body, and I needed to move it hard. But I wanted to reach out to our audience and say, ask us the questions, because we not only have learned about it through our certifications and different things, we've also lived it. And we've lived through different things throughout our lives and emotions that we're here to just talk to you. And so if you have a question, please make sure you put it in the comments. What do you think, ladies?
I totally agree. And I love the fact that you said there are multiple tools, right? Because it's like, yep, this might work, but I also know that this works, and I also know that this works. So to be able to pull from that toolbox is really important.
Yeah, I always think about like repairing your house. Sometimes you need a hammer. Sometimes you need a screwdriver. Sometimes you need both. And sometimes you need a professional.
Good point.
And I would have compared it to fitness, is that it's an ongoing thing you need to do, being healthy, but sometimes you have to change your diet or your exercise or whatever you're doing because you hit a plateau, and it's just an ongoing thing. And sometimes you fall, and sometimes you have to get up, but it's just an ongoing maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't it be great if you could say, well, I'm going to go work out and that's it. I'll never have to do it again in my life. I'll be like fitness.
Well, I do say that. I'm done.
But seriously, that's so true. And that's
Yeah.
such a great analogy, Tracy,
Yeah.
to compare that with that, because it is something that you constant, and we don't question that kind of stuff. That's what's so interesting. We don't question, oh, if it's physical fitness, yeah, I'm going to have to keep doing this
Yeah.
on a regular basis. But we do question it when it's with the mental part.
Yeah.
We're like, well, why can't I just get this fixed and call it a day? Like,
Right.
surely to God, that's the way it works.
It's what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
There isn't anything wrong with you. It's just a symptom you have. It's an emotion you have. It is completely, you're able to completely control it with help or with tools, one or the other.
Yeah.
Or both. So definitely make sure you put in the comments. Tracy E., thank you again for sharing. Sometimes people don't talk about anxiety and the effects of it and how it comes up to us or just sneaks in. So we both appreciate you putting your heart out there. I know that somebody needs to hear that. And make sure you hit like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure that you hit notifications so you find out when our next episode comes out. Until then, thank you.
Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you as a regular member of our community.